Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, human being, American, and YouTube Ronin. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's episode of Reserved Seats. Already into chat. Channel member JPRPH1. Faithful Blue Wrench channel member, the Bird Woman of YouTube. Watch out for her channel, Fluff Chick Productions. It's Connie Cleary. Friend of the channel, Charlotte Nightstar, the werewolf. Qapla' to our resident Klingon, Mark Malnikoff. DJ Play Nice in the house. Please do not forget to hit the like. Share the stream. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I am 21 subscribers away from 5,100. This is the road to 6,000. I want to say hello to everyone currently joining us on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. Memberships are now available. Please check out the membership page of my channel. More the merrier. I have a special guest tonight who is patiently waiting backstage. So I am going to bring him on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, the tired midnight blogger himself, actually blogging at midnight, Curtis Selby.
So what do you mean that Doge took all my funding away? Oh, I'm sorry. I got to hang up.
Oh wait, hey.
I'm on the stream. Bye, pal.
No.
I was on the phone with my broker. I'm sorry. So.
Right on. So how's life been treating you?
Well, we talked a little bit about it backstage. It's not bad. It's just hectic and challenging. But as Lone Waddy said, we will endeavor to persevere. Yes. Yes. So.
Right on. So, well, let's get right down to it. You were on the verge. All right. Well, before we get into that, let's kind of dive back into the past a little bit. Now, how did you first become involved with the Manson Family Chronicles? That is YouTube.
The funny thing is, I wrote a post about the leadership things that you can learn from Charles Manson. But hopefully, that doesn't get us dinged from YouTube. That was all meant for educational purposes. YouTube. I'm not saying we should be like him, but it started out with my son. I have personal reasons for kind of being reticent to talk very much about. I joke about the marriage that I had, but things really were very bad. But my son was he's autistic, and he used to make little animation films, like little bitty things, and frankly, often you could not understand them if you weren't autistic. There's a whole subculture of autistic children that would make these little cartoons, and they understood them. Us neurotypicals, really not so much. And so I kind of watched him do them, and I got a little bit interested myself, and I had always wanted to write. And at the time that he was doing that, I was putting out a blog on I'm having a senior moment, but WordPress. And it was called No X for Christmas. That eventually imploded for reasons that kind of go back to the wonderful marriage thing. So I'll skip ahead a little bit if that's all right.
It's fine.
After I left my ex-wife, I still wanted to pursue writing in some way. And so I started another WordPress blog, and I called it the Tired Midnight Blogger. And it wasn't exactly successful, but I gathered, a few people who liked to read it and stuff. But then I started to try to make videos like my son was doing, and not necessarily with cartoons, but with other things. And I just kind of played around with it. And I learned that I could basically, with about half of the effort, I could say the things I wanted to say, and more people were actually coming on and watching than would read. So I was thinking, well, it may not ever be a big thing, but maybe I could get more people watching and listening. And part of my shtick and spiel on both of these quote unquote blogs was I'm an old man who's basically messed up his life, but I want to figure all this stuff out if I can. And so it's about the thinking process of the media is telling us this. How can we rely on it when we all know that the opposite side says something that's totally opposite? Which one can you rely on? Can you rely on either one of them? And then, so one of the people who was helping me out with the written blog was Moira Kitty. That's one of the reasons why I try to be so differential to her, because she was incredibly helpful to me. And she still is, don't get me wrong, but she was incredibly helpful to me when I was writing, and basically wasn't really getting a lot of help from many people. I won't say from nobody, but from many. And because we both kind of have a possibly sick fascination with the demented politics that we have anymore, I started doing stuff about that. And then she was on reality based. He interviewed her once. And so I started listening to some of his things, and I started seeing this thing on the site that said StreamYard. Oh, what is this StreamYard? And I'm a terribly slow learner. So I was probably watching him for a month or two and not making the connection that, oh, this is a program, and it's a program that can help you stream. And then one day he interviewed you, and I don't exactly know what it was, but there was just something about the things that you said, the way you presented it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I mean, I don't know if I could do as well as these people, but I could do it, at least in my own limited fashion. And so I basically tagged along with you to Troy Pacelli and Netter. And I was kind of goofing around in the chat with all the wonderful people there. And Netter, just out of the blue, was like, hey, would you like to be interviewed? And yeah, that sounds like that would be fantastic. So because of you people, I know I've still got 100 things to learn, but I learned a little bit about StreamYard. I learned a little bit about managing a chat, which I'm actually doing a terrible job at looking at right now. And I got into politics. I had my own journey. I don't want to get your channel flagged, so I won't say too much about it. But I went from being very centrist, and I know that I've had difficulties with friendships. I won't say that I've lost them, but they've become very strained because I've picked a side. And maybe, I mean, hell, maybe I was wrong, but I don't think so. Um, on the channel and with the community watching, I was silly enough to go live and challenge these notions. I would look up, say, for example, there's a media pundit that had 10 lies that are told about the bad person we're not supposed to talk about. And then live on the channel, I verified that he was correct about at least 7 of those 10 things. And then the other 3 things, it depended on what website you believed and what you believed, whether he was correct or not. And I was finding more and more and more of these things. And then when the attempt happened on who's the guy who's now President Trump and was then, the candidate, I had a major shift there. And again, I only want to kind of gloss over that because even though it was hugely impactful on me and the channel, YouTube doesn't like us saying too much about that. And I'm not on my channel. So, if I get a strike on mine, that's one thing, but I don't want to hurt yours when you've been kind enough to let me on here. So that's kind of the story in a quasi Cliff's Notes fashion. So,
Yeah, and as I was saying before backstage, when I'm on someone else's channel, I do my best to kind of tone myself down,
yes.
stay on subject, because when I first started on YouTube, it was a little bit more. It was more like the Wild West,
Right.
It kind of depending on, again, which channel you were on, you would just let things fly, and be on these channels that were a little bit more, for the lack of a better term, politically minded.
Right.
And and I was very much like you. I was someone who was a centrist, and I was a very much a, you work your side of the street, I work mine, so to speak.
Yes.
And, based on a lot of the rhetoric that we've been seeing from a certain side, from one side of the aisle, I felt I was being forced into making a choice, that I had to pick a side.
Yeah.
And whenever I am in a situation like that, I pick the side that I've always been on.
Yeah.
Mine.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go with the side that has my back.
Mm-hmm.
And and I, when I started voicing that on my channel, I know that upset some people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, the answer to that was, my channel's not an echo chamber.
Yes.
And I don't expect everyone to agree with me. And if you look at my channel, I really don't do a whole lot of political stuff.
No, you don't. You I think you do probably about the right amount. You have your unscripted, which is not always political.
No.
But
Most of the time it
that's
isn't,
it. Yeah, most of the time it's not. Although when it is, I think it's wonderful and amazing. But that's just me. That's just don't ding him, YouTube. That's my opinion, not anyone else's. So necessarily.
Right. Because like I said, I used to kind of gravitate to I always seem to find myself on these channels that would let everything hang out, and they were pretty, staunch in their opinions, and I was like, but still, I was accepted,
Yes.
into
Yes.
this, if you want to call it, if you want to call it a fellowship, that's fine, I'll accept that answer, but I also have come to understand that, not everybody, like I said, not everybody is going to agree, you
No.
know, and I'm voicing opinions that I've only kind of started making public kind of recently,
Right
on here,
on.
but because I had reached a point to where I was looking at certain people who claim to speak for the other side,
Mm-hmm.
who were really coming off to me very much like schoolyard bullies.
Yes.
It's a lot of the same people politically, um, because I know how certain people who were on the left were when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, now this is all the same people making the same statements, and I was beginning to see it as being very obstructionist.
Yes.
And you are the people who keep claiming that you are tolerant. You claim that you are the ones who are fighting against, I'll say, ists and phobes, as well you should. But you are acting in the way that you claim the people that you are against are acting.
Yes. 100%.
And I cannot join a group of people who are going to be that way.
Well, you know, part of my own particular journey to where I am right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I discuss it some on my channel. And again, I want to be very careful how I put this, but I had I had friends who I have always thought of them as either centrist or maybe just very slightly right or left
Mm-hmm.
of center, you know. Um, and it was never an issue. If you voted for Clinton, that's okay. You're part of the group. If you voted for, well, not Reagan necessarily, because we were mostly too young for that, but, if you voted for Bush, if you voted for, yeah, none of that mattered. We loved each other. We were brothers. There were other things that connected us. We loved certain movies. We loved martial arts. We loved nearly all things geeky. Um, and so the last, I would say, 2 years, and I don't doubt that they would say the same thing about me, only on the other way. And that bothers me because you know, I often wonder, how would I perceive all this if I was on the other side? But I started hearing hateful things from people who I'd never known to be hateful before. Not necessarily aimed at me. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but aimed at, Trump or at the Republican Party or like the guy who gave the commencement and was talking about family values and stuff. that football player. Can't even remember his name, but he was excoriated by the left. And when I listened to his speech, I didn't hear, I really didn't hear a single thing that bothered me. Or, I don't know that I agreed with everything that he said, but there was nothing that he said that made me just angry or, anything like that. And man, my friends were like, "Did you hear that guy? He is the biggest misogynist. Oh, he hates women." And I was like, "What? You're in a different world. When did this happen? How did this happen? You're not the same person you were even 5 years ago." And besides the things that I've talked about, this was a big, and I hate that our friendships have been strained. And I'm sure that I probably should have dealt with it in a different way. I shouldn't have taken it to YouTube. I should have taken it to them. But if I can give myself what may just be a cheap out, I tried to talk to them, and I was told things like I would share a video about the debate over that disease that we're not supposed to talk about, which I think is insane. We should at least be able to talk about it. The debate to me was just incredible. Both sides were very well, they were very articulate. They had great sources. It was a debate. It wasn't just a couple of idiots throwing insults at each other. It's what we should be seeing much more often. And I share this with my friends, and their response was, "That debate's been had and won. I'm not going to listen to that." And I'm like, after you send so many of those, you realize that it's really not that they're saying they're not going to listen to that. They're not going to listen to you. And if you don't want to listen to me, that's fine. I don't want to be arrogant here, but I have an audience of people who are willing to listen. Now, maybe I'll screw up and run them all off, but maybe it'll turn out that my friends knew something that I don't, and you guys will find that out. But if I'm not going to be heard by them, why keep talking to them? If you guys do want to hear what I have to say, why not share it with you guys? And I see DJ Ronnie G is here. Welcome, welcome.
Yes. And our man from the future, Shashi, has joined us as well. Good to see you, sir.
But he never shares the winning lottery ticket with me.
I know, right?
What's up with that?
What is that about? What's up with that, man? Jeez.
We could all be rich. We could all get $1 million. And then we could start our own streaming platforms. And we could get DEI money from the government and live like kings. Is it sad that that's where my mind goes?
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Now, I know.
Yes.
I know with me, I think things did. We can't miss the timeline. No. Fair enough. Fair enough. I know. I think I think that things did get worse after the lockdown, or
Yes.
as I referred to it as the involuntary house arrest.
Yes.
And hello to the Clue Studio. Good to see you, sir. As always.
Hail to thee.
Now,
greetings. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Now, I am someone who is used to a certain amount of solitude.
Yes.
And quite frankly, kind of enjoys a certain amount of solitude. So, hey, okay, extended time without a whole lot of people, great. Because guess what? I found YouTube.
Yes. It actually is a great place to go for people like us who, I mean, we do want some human interaction, but I don't really need to have, I don't need to have a lot of people around me physically, number one. And number two, I can go for, maybe I shouldn't say days, but probably 2 or 3 days without seeing a person. And you know what? I'm okay.
Hmm.
I'm totally okay with that. Now, if it gets too long, eventually I get to where I'm like, I wonder what people look like. Hmm.
Yeah,
But,
that's a
you
little
know,
too
yeah,
long. Yeah.
yeah, you can go too long. I have done that before, but like, 2 or 3 days, I've got my dog, I've got YouTube, I've got my books, I can
Mhm.
watch a movie, I can clean my house. The woman I'm dating right now, she texted me the other day and said that she was bored, and I'm not the most romantic guy in the world. My response was, I haven't been bored in ages. And I, 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 I can count one time when I was bored in the last year. Um, but there's always something to do. There's always something good and wonderful to do. And I've I've seen. I don't want to. Again, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I've seen some really not wonderful things. I know people have seen worse. Plenty of people have, but I've definitely seen things that stretched my capacity to stay sane, as it were. And I stayed sane, but I think, you know, I don't think I could have taken much more than the things that I did take. And I only bring that up because I now realize, if you can survive that, then there's no point in whining through this stuff. You know, you just roll up your sleeves and get to work, and do the best you can, and know that you probably won't build Rome or change the world, but you can change a little bit here and there to make it better. And you would think that that would be the message. I mean, doesn't that sound like what you would think of a classical liberal as saying? But I don't know.
Well, the difference is I and this is something that I want to make clear because I know I have said some things on this channel that have upset liberals, and
Right, right,
I'm
right.
sorry, but I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I don't I don't lump in what I think you and I think of as a classic liberal in with these woke TDS mind virus types. This is a whole different thing.
It
This
is.
is, in my opinion, cult-like behavior. And I
Mm-hmm.
was talking about this a little bit earlier tonight. And I'm hearing this from people. I know people who are out in California who are on both sides of the aisle,
Right,
and,
exactly.
and, and they're kind of telling me a lot of the same thing. It's like these are people who are living in a different world. They are within their own bubble. It is cult like, and it is. anybody who deviates from that
But the
is
irony,
tossed out of the group, so to speak.
the irony is, and I apologize for interrupting you, but
No, it's fine.
that's exactly what my liberal friends will say about, I mean, word for word, what they'll say about the right.
Hmm.
And it doesn't, here's the deal. Here's the deal. When you and I see it, so maybe we're just what is it that it's called, a coterie of mutual admiration. But you see Noam Chomsky. I mean, I'm not saying he ever came out pro Trump, but he said, basically a lot of the things he's been saying recently are Republican talking points, not Democrat talking points. You've
Mm.
got Russell Brand, who spoke at the RNC, and he's about as classically liberal as it gets.
Hmm.
RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, on and on and on the list goes. I'm looking right now, and I know that I got to be a little bit
Look
careful.
at Trump.
Yes,
Trump himself in his early days. This man gave money to Democrats.
yes.
I mean, I'm sure he probably
I'm sure he
he
hedged his
probably
bets. Yeah,
hedged his bets too. Very very much as Howard Hughes does, and I'm sure Elon Musk probably has in the past. I wouldn't know for sure, but he was someone who was supportive of Democrats up until
yes,
a certain point in time. Then he
yes,
changed his mind. And he did for the same reasons that RFK has, and like Tulsi Gabbard has, and like some other people that we can both name,
yes,
and it's like I always say, with that kind of rhetoric that you're spewing out, all you're doing is you're pushing me farther right.
yeah. Well, uh, there's a comedian in Britain by the name of Frisbee, and I used to share it, but now I'm learning you can't share much on YouTube. But he's got this comedic song about how we're all far right now, and I shared that with a friend, a centrist friend, and he actually kind of blew me off with this one because he didn't want to take either label, and I get it. I really do. I don't
Mm.
really like taking either label, but the point of the song isn't that he shifted far right. It's that the left went so far left that they totally left him behind. And he, I don't know what to do with it. But I do want to recognize Gorilla Censored Thoughts, who sang
Yes,
Claw,
indeed.
swinging in before bed. He's okay. Got you. Okay,
Since you
sorry.
missed is something important. All right, cool.
Yes.
All right. Um, Mark Myelnikov saying, I had to explain to a relative the other day I didn't leave the DNC, it left me behind. Reagan said the same thing when he
Mm-hmm.
switched parties. I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me.
Yes.
So
Yes. That is true.
this is
No,
the
I agree.
same thing.
And the speeches of Reagan, and don't get me wrong, I know he did. There's definitely things that Reagan did that make me go, "What in the heck was that?"
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But his speeches and some of his actions
Hmm.
have always been foundational to the way I see the world and how it ought to be. And I remember it wasn't quite to the same degree as Trump, but I remember a similar dynamic. You had a lot of celebrities that I liked that would make fun of him. Now, I don't remember them getting as hateful as they've gotten in the last few years,
Hmm.
but I remember a lot of the people that I liked were strongly critical, and I wrestled with that as a teenager. because loyalty was a big, big, big deal to me
Oh yeah.
back when I was a teenager, and it still is, but not. I've come to realize that you can get too perfectionistic with that, and I have that tendency. Um, you can't. It's like The Man Without a Face with Mel Gibson. It's either pass or fail. It's either pass or fail. Well, I can't. I learned from that movie, if nothing else, you have to give people some slack. But where I'm going with this is, um, yeah, Reagan made some mistakes, but these celebrities would make fun of him, but at the end of the day, I I could still bring myself to love both of them and agree with Reagan on say 80, 70 to 80% of the time, and I could agree with that liberal maybe 30 to 60% of the time, and it didn't make them necessarily bad people. I think we've lost that though in these times.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's shameful to me how we treat each other, and I do know that there's some of it. There is times when the right or when Trump will say something. I'm going to use the example of Canada. I think I know why he does it. And yes, he's still my president. And yes, I'm still on his side. And I do not regret voting for him. Having said that, sometimes I wish he would just let the Canadians vote for the conservatives like they were going to do, and like I hope they still do. You know, um, sometimes I wish I was a big important person and I could just talk to the Canadians and say, like, look, I'm not saying you have to like him. I'm not saying you have to agree with him. But in our country, we decided that we loved our children more than we hated Trump. And that, maybe he's not the perfect answer, but he's the best answer we've got right now. And you guys have to make that same decision. Do you hate Trump more than you love your children? And if you do, you'll vote for another Trudeau and you'll destroy the lives of your children. But if you can get over that hate, you can vote for the good candidate. Frankly, probably I'm possibly better than Trump. This Villa, I can't pronounce French, but the Canadians in my community have been sending me stuff about the conservative candidate out there, and he seems like a solid guy. But anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
I probably went on too long about that.
No, it's just that Canada, like California, has leaned left for so long that I don't
Yes.
think they know anything else. And I make the jokes, you know, that Canada's like a loft apartment over a really great party or, stuff like that. But,
Right.
every time we've gone into some major engagement, shall we say, around the world, Canada's always gone in with us,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have now reached a point where we seem to be at odds with the left wing of Canada, much as we seem to have reached that here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the division that concerns me, because a
Mm-hmm.
divided country is easily conquered.
Yes. Yes.
And when we had our borders open for so long, you now have to wonder, not necessarily who could enter the country, who is already here.
Yes.
And that's the concern that I have. And I'm having people tell me that I'm racist or xenophobic because I have that concern. I go, as an American, we should all have that concern. As a Canadian, you
Yes.
should have that concern. As a Mexican, you should have that concern. You have people
Mm-hmm.
moving up from El Salvador and these other countries moving through Mexico into the country, which means that those people who may be coming in to move narcotics,
Mm-hmm.
move illegal arms, they are coming through Mexico to do it. They can come in through Canada and do it because everybody's got their eye on Mexico. They don't think to look at your northern border.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
So what I'm saying is that this is stuff that we got to get together on.
Indeed. You're
And we
quite
have to
correct.
put these bullshit politics aside
Well,
and start working together on some of this stuff, like not just protecting our borders. We have a very serious education problem in this country
we do.
because that has been taken over by these activists, in particular in the colleges.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny? I was I was reading a Facebook post from someone,
Mhm.
and they were talking about how, Trump is a fascist, and I know that he's a fascist because one of the things that always starts with a fascist take over the government is anti-intellectualism.
Mhm.
I think though that it's dangerous to confuse attacking the institutions of colleges that I would argue have gone just way too far to the left. It's like this is one of the things that I learned. There's a guy, I want to say his name is Mike Benz. He talks on Russell Brand's channel, and you have to find most of his stuff on Rumble because he can't hardly say anything on YouTube at all.
Mhm.
But he was talking about how the institutions have been captured by the Democrat Party. The FBI, the CIA, the bureaucracy.
Mhm.
It's no longer like, back in the 80s, it might have been a 60-40 thing, 60% D and 40% R. Now, a lot of them are more like 80 to 90%. And if you believe Elon Musk, sometimes much closer to 100%. And basically, if this is true, it means we have rule by one party, which I don't even like rule by two parties. I wish we had more, but we're where we're at. And it's become a thing that we talk about defending democracy, but we're actually not defending democracy. We're defending entrenched institutions that were created by democracy, that they were created to protect democracy, but now all they're really protecting is themselves. They don't care about us anymore. They don't seem to have any limit on what they're willing to do. And they justify it. Again, I don't want to get your channel flagged, but the event in January of 2020 that caused so much of a ruckus, any lie, any aberration of truth, uh, any draconian, one-sided fact checking, any smear, anything is justified because we're so terrified of that event happening again. And my thought now is, one, there was more going on there than we're told. But again, not to get your channel flagged, let's even assume that the official narrative is altogether correct. Even if it is, you can't keep the moral high ground by saying, well, this fascist, this liar, we're going to stop him by lying and acting like fascists. It doesn't, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm naive, but I don't think it works that way. And I think that's frankly one of the big reasons why Trump ended up winning. If they had taken the moral high ground and not just talked like they were going to, I don't think he would have had a chance in heck. But when it was shown that they were so morally bankrupt, what else were we supposed to do? And now that I've killed the conversation, Steve, you might want to start it back up again. Sorry.
Well, I do want to say really quick to Tommy and the Guinea Pig Collective has joined us.
Hey.
In the chat. And yes, rest in peace, Rorschach.
Oh, no.
Little guy. Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. Mark Malnikoff, I want to recognize the phrase by any means necessary. The left causes me a lot of worry. And hail to Tim.
FKHC 2005, yes.
Some there are that call him Tim.
What is your name?
Oh, and also Mark Malnikov said that if I followed the plans that I had, I would be doged. So, but I know Doge is bad, Orange Man bad. It's all bad. Everything's bad.
Yeah. Of course. Because you are dealing with people who are not happy unless everybody is as miserable as they are. And I don't feel the need to do that.
Right.
I can't be negative and down on everything all the time. I'm not playing this. I'm not playing this blame game. I'm not going to attempt to guilt trip anybody. If it's kind of like crying wolf. You do it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
You call someone an Istrophobe so many times, you dilute what that word means.
Exactly.
You take the power away from it. You can't keep going back to that. You can't have, you didn't vote for a woman, so you're a sexist. You didn't like this movie because you're a racist. No, it's not going to work anymore. All right. You weren't voted for because you were not a viable candidate, even by your own people. Okay. Yeah. And I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to say this, and if I get bounced for it, fine. What happened to Joe Biden was a coup. It was a political coup.
Yeah, it was.
To get him out of the way. And it had to have been their plan from the beginning.
And, I don't know how far back that goes, although maybe I have gone too far to the right, because I started out saying, well, for at least the last 2 years, he's had dementia. But more and more, I find it very plausible that he had it even before the election. Now, I think it got profoundly worse over the next 2 years. And I could be wrong, although I don't think I'm wrong about the last 2 years at all. I think it's just too obvious.
Hmm.
But even there, so one of the friends that I was most staunchly centrist, and still I'm certain he thinks of himself as centrist. More and more, the things coming out of his mouth were just Democratic talking points, and for maybe a year or two, I was just like, well, he's upset because of the January thing. He feels like he's been lied to by the right, and it seemed at the time like he had been. So he's very upset, and there's going to be a reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been really good to me, so I need to cut him some slack. And I need to listen to what he says. But then, like I say, I would send my videos, and well, nope, we're not going to listen to that. That debate's been had. But what finally was the straw that kind of broke the camel's back? We were talking, and he admitted, we have to admit. I remember how he said it. We have to admit that Biden has dementia, but I think it's obvious that if we look at it, so does Trump. And for maybe the first time in a 20-year friendship, and again, I don't want to get your channel struck, so I'm going to back off on how I wanted to say it, but I really wanted to say, what in the beep have you been smoking?
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked it up, and there were deep fakes all over the internet, and CNN was reporting this stuff, and MSNBC was reporting this stuff. But if you looked and searched, you could find that these were deep fakes. And again, I know the right does that too. So, I don't mean to be all high and mighty, but they're making, like, there's this picture of Trump leaning so hard on his son because he couldn't keep up. And like I say, they photoshopped it from an actual photo where he was just, shaking his son's hand and stuff like that. But we're not going to research that. We're not going to look into that. We're going to accept it because NPR shared it and AP shared it. The people who traditionally were centrist as short a time ago as maybe 10 years ago, maybe, they're not centrist anymore.
No.
They have completely chosen a side. And I would argue it's not the side that cares about us.
And I agree. I mean, you can't go to the quote unquote the mainstream media anymore, the NPRs, the CNN, even the Fox Newses, folks. I mean, you can't.
Yeah,
you
right.
can't just take at face value everything that these people have to say, because they do have ulterior motives. They have agendas. This is why I say you have to go to alternate sources. And this is one of the reasons why, I came onto YouTube, was because I was getting this, you know, and I don't want to say an alternate opinion. Hell, don't even do that. Look, I don't care if a news anchor it is politically biased in their own mind one way or another.
Exactly.
Report the news, report it fairly, and let us, the American people, decide.
Exactly. That's what it was supposed to be. And I
That's what
think
it's supposed to be. And they
that's
turned
what the
away from
message.
that. And once they turned away from that, I had to tune out what they had to say. You know, and you have this shill access media too. You can't take them
Mhm.
seriously. You know, and I'm not going to name names because, like I always said, you know, my channel is not about going after other YouTubers, but we
Exactly.
know who.
Exactly. Well, I will say a word of praise for a fellow YouTuber. I thank God for Culture Casino
Oh, absolutely.
because he points out, and not always, but usually he's got the receipts, for what
Hmm.
he's saying. Um, I love that he talks about, this article is from AP, and he just, side note, you really can't believe them anymore, but this is what the article's saying. And I mean,
Hmm.
he'll mention it, but one, as I've said on my own channel, he's a podcaster. He's not a journalist. So we don't need to hold him to perfect standards. But second, he still does a better job of being objective than
Hmm.
most of these reporters. Um, I'm just saying, uh, he's wonderful as far as I'm concerned, as far as a source of what's going on in Hollywood and with the movies. Um, I, I sometimes I think about trying to share him with my friends, but I don't know. I don't even know
Yeah.
what to do.
You know, I mean,
But
because, you know, that's what I'm talking about. You know, there is this division, and it's
yes,
like we just, you know, during the lockdowns, we lost touch with each other. And I'm guilty of that too,
well, yeah,
because I
I
lost
am
touch with
too.
some people.
Hmm.
And, you know, somewhere along the way, we got divided because it was around that time period, you know, spending more time online. I'm on Twitter,
Hmm.
X or Twix, whatever you want to call it. Um, I was starting to see hashtag woke, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
hashtag resist. And I'm like,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing this. And after a while, I just, you know, for the lack of a better term, approached one of these people who was like constantly with the woke, 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 hashtag woke. And I'm like,
Right.
well, excuse me.
What
Hi,
is
old guy here. That's how I'm not really down with the lingo that the young kids are using these days. That's how I approached it. And I'm like, what does
it?
this mean, this woke? You know, what are you resisting against? And it seemed to be, and they basically narrowed it down to anything that they didn't agree with.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I'm like, you're not resisting anything, you're just being a contrary.
Hmm. Yeah, there's
You
definitely
know,
a difference
and
between resistance and
yeah.
contrariness.
Now, these were the people who were all for these were the same people who last year go out and buy a Tesla. Now they want to, you know, destroy all the Teslas. I go, make up
Hmm.
your mind.
Exactly.
Okay. You're telling me through your actions that you're hypocrites. You're telling me through your actions that you are the racists. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to chase somebody off of a subway train because of the way they are dressed, if you are going to damage someone's vehicle and cause all of this mayhem and potentially burn down your own neighborhood with this thing,
Yeah.
because you put one of those things on fire, you have to let it burn out.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. If you're willing to do that, you can't tell me that I'm the fascist.
Yeah. Well, also, it tells me that their principles are
Yeah, you
not as
have none.
important
To
as
have none.
hating a person, but we're the party of compassion and love.
No,
I beg to
no,
differ. Now, look, is Elon perfect? No, he's not above criticism.
no.
If I
I'm not.
wanted
And don't
to,
get
I
me
could.
wrong. I'm not saying
Yeah,
you can't criticize anybody on the right. Of course you can.
exactly.
I do it quite a
Exactly.
bit, actually,
Yes.
on my show. I've said, okay, Trump got elected with this mandate. Now you got to go out and do it.
Yes.
And we have to keep his feet to the fire to make
Yes.
sure he does what he promises. Now, I think that's just common sense.
Yeah. And let's
You know,
face it.
you
Yeah.
you 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 made promises to get elected. You got elected. Do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood is the same way. You bought an IP,
Mm-hmm.
obviously
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed it. You found something to like in it. You put hundreds of millions of dollars into it. Make the IP.
Yeah.
But no, they want to go and change it. Hey, the screenplay is perfect. What can we do to change it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I and the reason why I keep and the reason why I keep like politicians, the mainstream media, and and Hollywood together like that is because they are the ones that have the board.
Yes. Yes.
You
They
know,
pretty much have the power.
I got to be careful about what I say. You got to be careful about what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you are going to insult half of the country in the process, and it does not have to be this way. You're going to tell me, you know, don't watch my movie, don't read my book, don't vote for me
Mm-hmm.
because if you do that, then I won't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And free
Well,
speech is fine, Fraggle. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, but you can't get pissy because someone said something that you disagree with. I am talking about agreeing to disagree like we used to do. Let's quit throwing these insults around. Let's quit threatening people. Quit destroying property. I don't want to talk about this stuff, but it's what's happening in my country right now. I got people who want to burn my country down. And then tell me, who has burned down nothing, that I'm the villain.
yes.
And
But
that's what I don't like. And that's what I consider to be an insult.
Kapla, Space Fraggle, an honor to you and glory to your house.
Yes.
Um,
Glad to see you here, Fraggle. I know you and I don't always agree on things, but I'm glad that you're here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
because here you're talking about free speech. Here you're allowed to speak. So you see, you don't agree in destroying property, and that's something. See, this is something where we both agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, you set one of these vehicles on fire, you have to continue to let them burn, and that fire is going to spread. And I don't know about anybody else, okay? I don't want to see any more neighborhoods burned down, either because of these protests or riots or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it didn't used to be this way.
Oh, and hey, hi, John Doe
Chondo
Juggalo.
Juggalo. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and this is something that I want everybody to understand about me. I'm a very simple guy, okay? I get up, I go to work, I I go for a walk, I feed my cat, I take care of my bonsai trees. I try my best not to ritualistically murder my roommate. I'm kidding.
It's hard not to do that sometimes.
Until I did something about it, I was peeing in two different directions, but it's neither here nor there.
Oh, gosh.
But I have, and hello to the lovely Sherry. Now,
Hey.
I don't, I live my own life. I'm a live and let live guy. But one thing that I am absolutely not going to put up with under any circumstance is all of this name calling, because I heard too much of it when I was a kid.
Yes.
And now I'll tell you the thing that happened that brought me there. Now, when I was in middle school, I went to a school that was a predominantly black school.
Right on.
Okay, because that was the area it was in.
Right.
It was,
Yeah.
you were in an area that was predominantly black. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Now, we had, when it came to the teachers, you had all kinds, much like you had with the students. You had people who are on various financial status. You had people who were of, you had the activist types, and you had the people who just wanted to do their jobs, and you had the people who just wanted to get by.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was drugs, there was violence, there was other stuff. But when I'm the one white kid in a class of 60 kids,
Right.
and you have a black teacher telling black students, and this actually happened. I am not making this up. This is true. When you have a black teacher who's supposed to be the father figure to these kids, someone to look up to, who's supposed to be the mentor, point at them and say, "You're just N-words," And unless you can wrap or toss around a ball, you're not going to be anything. You're not going to amount to anything. And then point at me and go, because he's going to take it from you.
Wow.
Not only have you just placed this huge target on my back, where basically I had to have my head on a 360-degree fucking swivel for the rest of the time I was there. That's what that did to me. Now imagine what that's doing to the psyche of those kids.
Yeah.
And I am seeing that very same thing happen now.
Yeah.
Only I got white people doing it.
Yeah, isn't that weird? So again, going back to, and this isn't nearly as bad as what you're talking about, but it's what's popping into my poor feeble mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to one of my friends, you know, God bless them. They're still good people. I still pray for them. I still talk to them some, but like he was talking about how Donald Trump had mentioned being proud of his Anglo-Saxon heritage and that made him racist. And I didn't go into the debate at all, but I was baffled because why not be proud of your Anglo-Saxon heritage? What the hell do you think Klingons were based off of?
Yeah.
And again, it's not to say that we should go the other way and feel like we're superior, or, but
no.
But blacks should be proud of their heritage.
Absolutely.
And they should. They 100% should. But what's wrong with us having? I mean, and again, no, we shouldn't take it too far. We shouldn't, like, if there's 60 white kids and one black kid, we shouldn't do what your teacher did to you, But at the same time, what's so bad about being glad that God made you what you are? But I could go on and on about that. Mark Molnikov is saying that that's totally screwed up. In contrast, he experienced anti-Semitic behavior from a school bus driver in the 70s. Man, I miss bell bottoms.
Who knows? I'll look in my closet. I might still find a couple. Who knows?
No, mine are all gone. I never had any. My sister had some, I think. I never had any. And now I'm thinking of the Mystery Science Theater when they watched Hamlet. Night fever, night fever. We know how to do it.
Hemmy, hamster. Mistakes were made.
I know I shouldn't do this, but chip beef flank or whatever that. And half of our audience is like, "Oh gosh, they've finally gone insane."
We put our faith in blast hard cheese.
Those are so fun. Oh God, I love Mystery Science
Slab rock.
If I could, that's what I would do. I would give up all this politics stuff and I would just watch cheesy movies and make fun of them.
That's what I do.
It's so fun.
I mean, that's how I go to sleep at night. I just put it on the Mystery Science Theater channel and I just let it run, man.
Me
That's
too.
what I do.
Like for almost a solid year, this will reveal how really screwed up I am, but I was going to sleep to Riff Tracks, A Talking Cat. If you haven't seen it,
I haven't seen that one yet. No.
I there's like there's so many videos about this. Oh heck, what is his name? The bald guy that does all those wonderful critic things, and he also does this thing where he tells you a little bit about every film made in a year, or every major film anyway. I can't remember his name.
Oh,
You know who I'm talking about. Maybe.
Oh, Brad Jones?
Maybe.
Stone Gremlin?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's
done one. Yeah, he was one of the first channels I started watching on YouTube.
Love his channel.
Back when you had I used to watch this channel back when they were still doing midnight screenings where they would do it in the car and have those. I go back and watch those old episodes, man. It is great. And he's like, like I remember one of my favorite reviews is the one that they did for Green Lantern. and he opens up with, "What the fuck was that?"
Well, okay, so I'm probably going to lose all the credibility that I've maybe gained here, but I actually, one of my favorites of his is his critique of a film called The Trump Prophecy.
Yeah.
And it's, look, when some people on the left say that there is a cult-like thing on the right, that film is kind of what gives them some credence.
Yeah, I don't. Well, I try to stay away from political films like that in general, but
it's so bad.
Like Trump Prophecy. I don't watch stuff like that, man, because it's awful. It's this. What are you doing?
Just watch his critique of it, and you'll get all you need to know.
I get it. Yeah, Trump Prophecy, Death of a Nation. I don't pay attention to that stuff, man. I don't. Hillary's America. I don't watch that stuff, man. I don't see the point in it.
Exactly. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So there was a time when I was in a very dark place for a while during my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, I was listening to Alex Jones. That's how far my sanity had gotten strained. And I was believing a lot of the things that he said, which, side note, the last 4 years have made me feel a lot less stupid about having listened to him. But neither here nor there. Where I'm going with this is, I remember that negativity. I remember that extreme, they're turning the frogs gay. That thing was fake. That was staged. The chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my friends introduced me to a channel, and one of our more liberal friends in the community, who I don't want to out because they're wonderful people, but there's a channel called The Midas Touch. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, well, I may be being unfair to it. I tried to get through one podcast, and I couldn't. I think I got through 20 or 30 minutes of it, because all it was Alex Jones just for the left. That's all it was. There's all these conspiracy theories and all this stuff, and oh, Melania is just about to leave Trump. But then you look back in the last 4 years of their channel, she's been about to leave him for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Why hasn't she done it by now? She's got a whole half of a nation that would be on her side. She had more in 2020. I think everyone would have been cheering her, probably even me. I think it's disgusting. Yeah. Leave that crap out of it. You want to bash him on his politics, fine. Bash him on his politics. But when you stoop to being personal like that,
yeah,
she slapped him.
What? That's that's a thing that I have never liked when either side does it. Like you will have both sides do it. Yes, you leave
the kids out of it.
You for sure leave the kids out of it.
Yeah,
and unless the wife is in politics too, like a Hillary Clinton, you leave them out of it.
Yep.
Okay. They are off limits. You don't get to talk about the Bush twins. You don't get to talk about Obama's kids. You don't get to do it.
Oh, no.
They are off limits.
No. Yeah. And it would, am I pro Obama? No, but it just disgusts me when, these kids, what's that got to do with it? It has nothing to do with it. They're just kids, If he was a bad father, which I'll be blunt. I don't think he was. I think he was a good father to those kids,
By all accounts, he did the best he could raising kids in the spotlight, like
in our crazy world. Yeah.
And you got to wonder, what that does to, any child of any president,
Oh yeah.
Being under that kind of scrutiny all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that no one ever takes into account. It's like, the president's brother, he drinks, the kid got caught smoking weed. Ooh, it's like, we're lucky that's all they're doing.
That's what
I would count
that's what I liked. That's what I liked about the movie Dave. I think that's what it was with the fate, the guy that was brought in to basically take his place during photo ops.
Mm-hmm.
You got to see what this was doing to his wife, and it was really cool. I liked that. I liked that a lot. Mark Melnikoff says he fought back from that anti-Semitic behavior and got the racist blank fired. She came to the school, tried to force her way in to kick Mark's tail, and got arrested. Everyone knows you don't go after a Klingon when honor is on the line. Sorry. I couldn't resist.
All righty. Well, we've actually stayed past the time that you said that you could. So I think now it's a good time as any to kind of start wrapping things up. What's next for your channel?
What's my major malfunction? Well, I'll keep it somewhat short. We talked about it a little bit backstage, but I'm having, shall we say, a marital spat with YouTube. So I'm going to try to do more things on Rumble. I'm also going to try to steer some of my stuff more toward local news, because I'm hoping to get local sponsors. I hope I don't become a horrible person for doing this, but I'm trying to think of this more as a business, although I don't want to lose that, whimsical, let's also have fun with it kind of thing. I've done some things on Rumble. I've already made not tons of money, but I've made money on Rumble. I haven't made a penny on YouTube yet. My next thing, my next gig, whatever you want to call it, is going to be on Rumble. That will be tomorrow, hopefully at 6:30 Central. I'm going to be talking with Darkwoods Presents, and we're going to be talking about some topics that are not YouTube friendly, including what the heck was going on with DEI, not DEI, but with USAID, whether or not it's legit for the executive branch to be ending NGOs or not, and just some basically things that YouTube doesn't want to hear from us. So we'll go talk about it on Rumble. And I haven't made up my mind exactly how I'm going to structure all this stuff, but I'm going to try to get back to a more regular streaming. I've been spending a lot of time editing my old videos because I want to make sure that there aren't many, hopefully any, but definitely I want to minimize any legitimate complaints that YouTube might have toward me. I'm also taking some of my more controversial ones down from YouTube and putting them on Rumble. And I'm thinking that going forward, I'm going to try to do a dual edged thing where on YouTube, I'm just a nice, sappy milquetoast who, I'm happy to talk as if the official line is okay. But then on Rumble, I'll probably come out after it with a vengeance there. But on YouTube, I'll play nice. So there it is. Don't know if that really answers the question, but that's what I got.
Fair enough. I intend to be a total and complete asshole at all times. No.
Yes. Sorry. Well, evidently you're better at it than I am because you got there. And on that note, if anyone's got any, I guess the best way to put it is if you have constructive criticism, as in, somebody said this or that on that video, and I didn't really like it. Let me know, because I'm sure if you didn't like it, YouTube didn't like it either. And I've got a lot of content, whether or not it's good content, I don't know, but I've got a lot of it. So going through it has been pretty arduous at best. So, and it wouldn't hurt to have another pair of eyes looking at it. Curtis Selby rumbling along in his bulldozer. Doge cut my budget. Sorry. That's all I got.
All right. Well, join me if you are a member of Troy Pichelli's channel. You might see me tomorrow night for a last call members night at the movies. So I'm going to be there. Tuesday, of course. Catch up with me at 8:30 p.m. along with Troy Netter and Aged Boomer for the next episode of Live from Sparkwood and 21, which is a retrospective of the Twin Peaks television series. And we are going to continue our watch party and discussion of Queen of Hearts, which is a fan film based on the series. Then, of course, join me Thursday night for Coming Attractions at 11:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 Central. Find out what's going on my channel for the next week, including my appearance with Big Al Presents on Films with Friends. And that would be Friday night at 8. And we are going to be watching Critters from 1986. All right. So, Curtis, any last words before we wrap it up? Fair enough.
What? No, I thought this was great for me anyway. I don't. Everyone in the chat may be like, "What the hell? What's going on with Curtis?" But I had fun, and I actually didn't feel the time going by. I will pay for it tomorrow, but I think it was worth it. So,
all right.
Thank you very much for having me on. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
I'll accept that.
And thank you, Mark Melnikoff. I'm glad that you found the stream interesting. I can keep doing things against lots of headway, but I think if everyone found these streams boring, I would probably give up in a month or two. So.
Yes, those of you in the chat who watch the show, who subscribe to our channels, who become channel members, you're why we do these shows, and you're why we continue to come back week after week. So, I do want to thank everybody currently following along on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. I want to thank everybody who is here in the live chat. Mark Malnikoff, Space Fraggle, the lovely Sherry, Tommy the Guinea Pig Collective, John Doe Juggalo, DJ Ronnie G, FKHC 2005, sometimes known as Tim, Connie Cleary, our man from the future, Sashi. Let me scroll up. Gorilla's Censored Thoughts, Clue Studio. All right. And of course, Charlotte Nightstar the Werewolf. From HQ and all points north, south, east, west, and beyond. Good night. Take care. Stay strong. Be safe and healthy. Because this is how we win. Roll that beautiful bird footage.